Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about map function in Python. So as part of this video, we are going to cover multiple subtopics and we will start with what exactly is a map function in Python, and we will then see why do we use a map function. Then we will also see the actual syntax of the map function, and then we will see how to print the output of a map function to the console, because there is a catch in printing the output. It's not that straightforward. And then we will also see a simple map example using a single argument, and followed by another example which has which uses multiple arguments in a map function. And then we will see another example that uses a lambda function along with the map function. And towards the end of this video, we will discuss about the homework that you can perform on your own using map function and the lambda function in a single program. Let's get started with this video. So what exactly is a map function in Python? A map function is something that calls a function on each item of an iterable. For example, if you want to perform the same operation on each items of a list, then you can use the map function in order to execute that particular function on each item of a list. So we will in a while see a syntax as well as an example to understand this concept in a better way. So the next point here is, why do we need a map function? Okay, so consider an example where you have a list say of 100 numbers, and you want to find the square of each of these items. Okay, so in this case it's a really simple example, but in case if it's a complex example, then it will be really tiring process in order to write a program that processes each of the items in a list one by one, right? So there comes the map function. So what you can do is, within a map function you can pass the whole list and perform the operation on each item of this list one by one without having to do this process manually. Okay, so everything happens automatically and you have to just pass a function that performs the actual work and also the list as an argument to the map function, and the map function will do the whole process for you. You don't have to do the process one by one for each of the item in a list. So the next thing is the syntax of the map function, and we will see how to write a map function using the syntax that it follows in Python. So the syntax is basically the keyword, which is map, followed by the braces, and within the brackets you have to fill in certain things. So I would use the syntax like this. So this is the function name, and followed by comma, and then the arguments. So the arguments can be of any number, so it can take one argument as argument 1 and argument 2 and argument 3 and so on. So within the map function you can pass one function name, and all the remaining values will be taken as arguments. Okay, so this is the simple syntax of a map function, and it returns something which you can store into a variable, say variable 1, and this variable 1 can then be used to actually print the output to the console. So in a while we will see how to write an actual map function, but before that you have to also understand that printing the map function output to the console is not that simple. So in this case, for example, we have the variable 1 here which got the output from the map function, but you cannot simply do print here. So if you do something like print variable 1, then the output that you will get into the console will not be a human readable form. So we will see in an example how you can execute a print function on a map function's output so that you could have a human readable output on your console. So let's jump into the simple map example, and in the same example we will also cover point number 4, which is to print the output to the console. So for now I will just comment these two out so that our program doesn't error. And now we are on the 5th step, which is the simple map example using one argument. So let's first create a function using the def function 1, and this function basically returns the square. So let's say we pass the number as a, and when we say square of a number, then it means a star a. Yeah, so if you remember the function from our previous videos, then this is how we write a normal function which can take any number of arguments, and we can process those arguments within the function and return the value back. So we have defined our function, but now comes the role of the map function. But before using the map function, we need an iterable. So what exactly is an iterable? So iterable is a list. In our case, say for example list 1, and I will have a list of numbers. Okay, so I have a list of numbers starting from 1 till 5, and we want to find the square of all of these numbers. So in order to find the square, we have already written a function here, and we need to pass each of these items as an argument to this function, and our function will be able to perform the square and return the output. But how exactly we can do this using a map function? We will see it right now. So in the map function, the first argument, if you remember, here is the function name. So in our case, the function name is funct1, and I will paste it here. I'm sorry. So yes, function 1, and the second argument, if you remember, is the different arguments, and each of these arguments are basically iterable. Okay, so in our case, our argument is list 1. So what happens is the map function takes each of these items from the list 1 and then performs the function on those items and returns the value. And the return value is then saved into our variable, which is var1. So let's execute this program and see if something shows up on our console. So you can see that there is no actual output printed on our screen. This is because we do not have any print statement here. Now if I put a print statement and put the variable 1 inside the print statement, then you can see that there is an error that returns a star a is an invalid syntax, because the return is like this without a s. And if I execute this now, then you can see that there is an output. So it's map object at some memory address, but we are not concerned about this because this is not at all human readable, and we need to convert it into a human readable text so that we can print it onto our console. So how exactly you can do this? We skipped the number 4 here, which was how to print the output to the console, and now we are coming back to this point that how we can print a human readable output to our console, which is an output from our map function. So inside the print, the variable 1, which contains the output of the map function, should be converted to a list first. Okay, so if we do something like this, then the output of the map function, which is stored in variable 1, is then converted into a list before we print it. Now if I execute this program, then you can see that the output gets printed on the console, which is 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25, which is actually the square of each of these numbers done individually. So you can see the power of the map function, that you write the function once and then you pass an iterable, which in our case is a list, and this function is executed on each of these items of the list, and a new list is created which has the output from this function. So it's really simple, and it can be really helpful when you perform complex operations within your program. Now let's jump into our next example, which is using the multiple arguments. So in our previous example, we saw a single program wherein we passed a single argument, which is a, and now we will try to do a comma b, which means we are passing 2 arguments, and say for example here we want to do a multiplied by b. But in this case we have only list 1, which means we have only 1 argument here. But when we are passing 2 arguments in the function, we need to also pass 2 arguments in our map function. So the first parameter will always be the function, which is our function 1, and the second parameter is basically our list 1, and we need another list, which is list 2, and I can create it here, and maybe I will keep it the same as list 1. Okay, so our list 2 is same as list 1, and I will pass that list here. So now what should ideally happen is, for each of these items the function gets executed and the value is saved into the variable 1, and we then print the final value after converting it into a list. And let's see what happens and what gets printed to our console. Now you can see that the value is same because we are doing kind of a square. So 3 multiplied by 3 is basically the square. So instead of doing a multiplication, I will do a sum here so that we get a different output than what we got earlier. And now you can see that the output differs. So this time we are doing a plus b, which means 1 plus 1 is 2, and similarly 2 plus 2 is 4, and 5 plus 5 in the end is 10. So now you can see that we could pass on multiple arguments and perform multiple operations within the function using a map function that performs all these operations on individual items of a list. So now we have covered the 6th point as well. Moving on to the 7th point, which is using the map function along with the lambda function in order to perform certain operations on the arguments. So if you remember from our previous videos, we used lambda functions, which are basically the throwaway functions you write within your program so that you can perform some quick operations on your arguments or on your values and return the values so that you can use it within your program. So in this particular example, we are going to create a lambda function and pass it into our map function, and then also an argument so that you can perform certain operation within that lambda function on those values. So let's see how you can do that. So we will start with map and then the lambda, which is the actual syntax for writing a lambda function. So lambda followed by the argument name, which is a, and we will also write the operation that we want to perform. So in this case, let's do something like a cube. So if we want to do cube of the argument that is passed on to the lambda function and return the value, then we do something like this. Okay, so this is our first argument, which is basically the function, followed by the second argument, which is going to be our list. So in this case, this is going to be our list 1. Okay, so here it completes our map function where the first argument is the function, and in our case this is the lambda function, and the second argument is an iterable, and we are using the previous iterable, which is our list 1. So let's save the value to say var3 and then print the list of var3. Okay, so I will comment everything out. We still need the list 1 and everything else I can comment out, and let's execute this and see what the output is. Now you can see that the output doesn't look good to me because we are using an incorrect operator here. So instead of this, we have to do a double multiplication symbol here in order to do the square or the cube or whatever power. So this represents the power. So a raised to power 3 is what we want to do in order to obtain the cube, right? So if I execute this now, then you can see that the output comes correct, which means we are able to find the cube of each of these items in the list using the lambda functions. So the next comes the homework that you can perform on your own using the map function as well as the lambda function. And as part of this homework, what you have to do is you have to create 2 different lists. So the first list will have the keys, for example, name, age, gender, and so on. And the second list will have the actual value of these keys. For example, name as Anoop, age as 31, and gender as male, and so on. So you have to create this for yourself and then use the map function and the lambda function to print something like this, which I'm going to show you now. So what you have to print is name Anoop, age as 31, and so on. And this will be obviously inside a list because we have to convert this into a list before printing it onto our console. So this is what you have to create using the map function as well as the lambda function, and you have to create 2 lists and combine them in the form of a key value pair and create a list and print it onto your console. I hope this is a really interesting and an easy concept, and if you face any issue while writing this program, then do not forget to write your comment below this video. And if you enjoyed watching this video so far, then please click the like button and share it with your friends. And if you are new to this channel, then do not forget to subscribe to this channel so that you get notified once I upload my next video on Python tutorial for beginners. Thanks for your time. Take care. Bye.